So let me go into duality a little bit more. So what I'm seeing going on in the world stage right now is that people who have historically had things really rough. Well, let me just bring it really close to home to start with. So when I was growing up in America in the 80s and 90s, especially in the 80s, African Americans had it really hard. And what you saw was when you encountered them, and there was a lot less of them back then, which is something people don't realize at all now, I've noticed, is they had really amazing character. A lot of them were deeply religious. They loved God. They were incredibly hardworking. They were very honest people, very, very honest people. And just a lot of them were just salt of the earth. And they had great senses of humor. They were oftentimes very entertaining people. What else? They were hard to offend because they had grown up in such difficult environments that it was very hard to offend them, and that's part of why their sense of humor was so amazing. And honestly, like, because the environment was so difficult for them back then, what happened was a lot of them ended up being considerably more intelligent than I see today. Considerably more intelligent. So now we've been in this environment for some time, and I attribute a lot of this to Obama, but I think this actually started with the civil rights movement, where in America, it's very difficult if you're not a minority, especially if you're a man. There are very few people that will hire you. There are very few people who won't look down on you, including other straight white men, for example. There's sort of a subconscious bias, like liberal men, straight white liberal men, if there is such a thing, kind of like hate other straight white men and will actively do things to hurt other people in that group, even though they're in that group, because they're trying to virtue signal and they're trying to gain status that way. And this has even been taken to an extreme, like that guy that got killed in Michigan at the beginning of the year because he had a gun on him. He was like looking for trouble. He was looking for a fight. That was, if you look at this guy's life and, how he presented, he was such a pathetic figure, as most liberal straight white men are, that this was his only way of gaining status. And that's a lot of what's going on with people. That's also what was going on with that woman that got gunned down by ICE. Not saying that was right at all, just saying she was looking for status. She was looking to be both these people, I think, were looking to be martyred, and they got their wish. I don't think the universe would have let that happen if they weren't actually looking for that. Sometimes you're in such an oppressed group in life, the only way you achieve status is in death. This is what was motivating Islamic terrorism, Islamic extremism, suicide bombers. It was the same thing if you understood how hard the life was for the people living in Gaza for decades. This is why you end up with suicide bombers, because that's the only way to improve their status in life, and it's very sad. So when I was born, when I came into the world, we were in a situation where life was easy street for straight white men in America. Extremely easy. And if you look at the, especially the comedy movies, but the media, from the 80s and 90s, you'll find these absolutely ridiculous characters like John Belushi and John Candy, just like, it's very, on the surface, easy to tell that life was very easy in America at this time for straight white men after the 70s, after the oil crunch of the 70s. Things were on easy street for quite a while. So that was the world I was born into. So growing up, that was the world I thought I was going to be living in. I did not anticipate that there would come a time when America would kind of get taken over by sort of like crypto communist forces that meant to completely undermine America and make un-American values proliferate all over America and start to dismantle everything that the America I grew up in was. So I've been living through that, and obviously I was caught completely unawares, but the net effect of all that is it made life very hard for guys like me for like a decade now. And so the result obviously is the weak ones either left the country or killed themselves. And when you put people through something like this, it causes them to actually become more intelligent, stronger, harder working, even to a certain extent, I would say more honest. Because all of those, like, you got to be honest if you want people to trust you, and you need people to trust you if you want to survive. Traditionally, anyhow. Not as much like that right now in history, but it's already starting to revert back to that. So I'm talking about duality. What I'm saying is, when things get hard for a certain group of people, over time, that group of people becomes better. And so I would argue a lot of the African Americans today, especially the women, are very soft. And you can tell just by looking at them. They're physically soft. And not all of them. Some of them have had very hard lives, and you can tell. But again, by looking at them, they're physically hard. Ultimately, if you live enough decades under softer, hard conditions, you grow softer, hard. Look at the American men that you see in the media from the 80s and 90s. They are soft. Go back and look at it. You'll see what I'm talking about. So it's very interesting how over time your body actually takes on these characteristics. And I think this is where we get these words from. So what I'm saying is duality. And human beings at a certain level need struggle to sharpen them, to make them better. If things are too easy for too long, people will literally, it's hilarious. People will literally get suicidal because they don't have struggle in their life. And that is exactly, on the whole, what has taken place with Western civilization after World War II. Things got so easy that people in large groups developed depression. No one has ever had it easier than American white women in the last 50 years or so, throughout all of history. And what happened? Their depression rates went absolutely crazy, and then they got on these SSRIs, which SSRIs destroy your brain over time, and now look at them. They're all completely nuts. And there's so many of them that are completely nuts that it's actually a huge issue in our country because, among other things, I mean, they're running a lot of the country, but among other things, they also vote. So these people decide policy. And even if at a certain point, and I've known these women, at a certain point, if they understood history, if they understood how things work, the SSRIs ate their brain. They don't understand anymore. They don't function correctly anymore. Their memory doesn't access properly anymore. So we have a very large percentage of people in this country that are completely out of their mind. And as a result of that, the leader of a nation reflects that nation. Look at the behavior of Donald Trump right now. Look at the things he's saying. Look at the things he's doing. Look at how he talks on camera. Look at how he contradicts himself from day to day. We have so many crazy people in America because Americans had it so easy for so many decades that we now have another one of these, there's been other times in history where there was a mad king or like some crazy Roman emperor. We have another one of these situations. And the guy before him, Biden, wasn't a whole lot better. I mean, he was just sleeping half the time. Like he was already becoming like somewhat catatonic, I would say. But this is really a reflection of the general populace in America. This is duality. We had it too easy for too long. So now it's getting harder and harder. It hit the straight white men first, Now it's starting to hit other groups. And you'll watch in the media, in social media, you'll watch as it hits these groups, they start squealing about it, right? When Trump got elected, the women immediately started squealing, like physically. You can see on TikTok they were squealing like they were in pain because they knew what this meant for them. So it's starting to get into the other groups that have been privileged for a good 10 or 15 years. Granted, historically, these people were not privileged. And people are going to argue with me that they weren't privileged. If you have been paying attention, you know. The minority groups in the last 10 or 15 years in America, the government was just literally handing them things. It was taxing the white people, especially the white men, because there's a lot of tax breaks for women in America. Although some of them need it if they're like trying to raise children on their own, right? And then that gets into why people aren't having enough kids, but that's happening all over the world. It's not just America. So it's got to be a bigger reason than that. But the government was giving these minority groups handouts, free land, free housing, free food. And I've seen it all over the place. It was in the school systems too. Just handing them things for free. And it made them soft. I mean, it did it quickly. Because like I said, these are people who historically have been oppressed. And they're going to deny that they had it easy in the last 10 or 15 years, but they absolutely did. And that's a generation. So we have a whole generation who's used to, more or less a whole generation, who's used to having things absolutely handed to them. And it was going on a little bit before this generation, but not nearly what it ramped up to being. And Trump's taking that away, in some cases pretty rapidly, like what's going on with food stamps, right? So as this is taken away, as these privileges are getting revoked, you're seeing the groups that it's hitting squealing. And you'll have to wait another 20 years and see another generation's going to come about. They're going to have it harder and they'll be better people. But what I'm saying is duality. Americans had it so easy for so long that they became really weak, really shitty people. We call this decadence, right? Hard times create strong men create easy times create weak men. This is what I'm talking about. But it hasn't been hitting the different demographic groups in America equally. And like, this is something that's been on my mind because I've been observing all of this for like 10 years or so now. But I really wasn't allowed to talk about it because that's how oppressed my group's actually been. No one was willing to let them even speak. We didn't have like freedom of speech. Now, the longer Trump's back in power, the more there's starting to be an ability to speak about certain things, as long as you avoid certain groups. And remember, the people who you aren't allowed to criticize are who are in control, right? But I don't need to talk about that because so many other people are talking about that. What I'm trying to point everyone to, and if you think I'm being racist, you're completely not understanding what I'm saying, is duality. The harder your group's having it, the longer they're having it hard, the better the ones who survive become in every measurable way. So straight white men were getting hit with this first. So what you're going to see over the course of the next 15 years is it's going to be straight white men who are going to end up on top again in America. It's already starting to happen. Like, it's actually amazing how quickly that rubber band snapped back. But it got real damn oppressive there for a minute under Obama. Sorry, not under Obama, under Biden. It got real damn oppressive. It's going to be really interesting because there's going to be a large number of people, especially straight white women, who are going to try to fight what can't be fought, what can't be undone, it's just a natural force of history. They're going to try to resist the natural form of history, and you already see it. But I think eventually they just really don't have it in them to fight that fight for very long. They're used to having everything handed to them. And what will happen is they're gonna revert to type, which means all these ladies who've been out here complaining about the men of their own type are going to end up coming back around to wanting to be with them again. But the men haven't forgotten, and they won't forget what happened. And you're going to find more and more straight white men in America are not going to get with straight white women in America. If they have any inclination to be gay, they're going to be gay, first of all. If they don't have that inclination, they're going to be getting with minority women. They're going to be importing women from other countries, especially if you're a guy like me and you expect your woman to not be obese. You're going to be either getting with a woman that just got here off the boat, or you're going to be bringing in a woman from another country who's a healthy weight. So there's going to be more and more of that. And as a result of all this, America will continue what it's always done, and the different groups, the different races, whatever you want to call them, will continue to mix. The Americans that will be alive in 50 years will look vaguely Asian and have mocha skin. In other words, Americans are going to end up looking Native American again. That's what people are going to end up looking like in about 50 years and onward, because all the groups in America are going to continue to mix. Because at this point, the white men that are going to get with white women have already done it, and they're married and they already have kids. The rest of the white men, the ones that have been disenfranchised for 10 years or so, are going to end up with either a certain kind of black woman or Asian women or Latinas. There's going to be a lot of guys getting with Latinas. And generally speaking, what you're going to find is people are going to find people on the same resonance as them, which means if you have a Latina woman who's been through a lot of hardship in her life for whatever reason, because it's life is pretty hard for a woman in South and Central America, as far as I know. Those people are going to be finding men who are coming up in the world. Let me give you an example. Young white plumbers, electricians, handymen, guys of that sort, HVAC guys, they're going to be getting with each other because they've gone through a similar level of hardship in life. And so they're going to understand each other, and they're going to have some actually very romantic lifelong marriages. They're going to work very functionally, and their children are going to be very genetically strong because they're going to be such a mixture genetically. And the more you are mixed genetically, the stronger you are, the stronger your immune system is, really. Because the reason for that is the viruses and bacterias basically adapt over time to certain groups of people that they get used to, certain populations. And when you mix together genes from two different populations, this throws a curveball at those things, and it takes them quite a long time to adapt to that. So that makes your immune system stronger in your offspring. So we're going to end up with like Native American looking Americans that have very strong immune systems as a result of the hardships that are going to take place for the next 40 years or so. So that's the principle of duality. The harder duality goes into a lot of things, but what I'm talking about is with culture, the harder you have it, the better your people end up. And Americans just had it too easy for way too long after World War II. And we are starting to pay the price for that now. I would say actually in some ways we have been for a little while now. But it'll continue to get worse for some time. And I think if you are a white woman in America right now, you have absolutely no concept of how hard your life will be for the next 40 years. And if you had a concept, you'd probably be looking to go up to Canada for some free euthanasia. Because, we adapt over time to things, and it's unbelievable what humans can get used to. But things can also continue to get harder and harder and harder. And that is because the technology is going to go away and culture is going to shift. And basically, a lot of people have a lot of karma that's coming due. Let me put it that way.